This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Okay, wasn't this exciting? Always like talking to this man. He's a very, very bright guy and really knows his cannabis stuff. And isn't it neat to have a passion for something that you like and enjoy so much too? A really good combination, I would imagine. Please welcome to the program for the 300th time, Lance Lambert from BovedaInc.com. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing? You're sounding great, Todd. Man, I love that intro, but also that segue. Man, you sound like you're doing great. You must be all settled into the new house.
Yeah, we're settling in. I'm actually broadcasting from our cottage, basically our second home, and it's a great way to do. We're very fortunate here at SiriusXM. You get a machine called the Comrex machine. You plug it in on a studio or to a like anywhere remotely. And right now, I'm at the barber shop in a small town in Muskoka, Ontario, called Baysville. And really cool stuff. The owner here, Kayla, is like, yeah, come on by in Baysville. And by the way, I don't know if you heard of this, Lance. This very same town, Baysville, I found out, and I didn't go, but I literally just found out over the long weekend. We had a long weekend here in Canada. They had a cannabis expo.
I did not hear that.
Like a pretty big one up in the Muskoka area. It had to get moved to even a bigger arena or something, and it just went down. I guess Boveda wasn't there. I know you guys are very prevalent in a lot of them, but there must have been some. I don't know the actual name of it, but it was definitely at the Baysville Arena. There was like a big cannabis expo, so even expanding to smaller towns.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, and I'm surprised, Todd, in my travels, small and large towns, just how predominant some level of this plant is, right? Even if just a company or an entity promoting CBD, is in a little town next to Minnetonka where our headquarters is in Minnesota, and went past a nursery and they're promoting, your local resource for CBD, went to a town that's right next to Minnetonka Lake, and same thing. They had a little, designated CBD shop. I was like, man, this is really taking the world by storm. I'm still humbled by coming across that, how far it's reaching. Not just, for you and I, but literally everywhere it can. So it's pretty cool.
Is there like studies done that show cannabis still has a stigma in smaller towns and more progressive cities, or they're sort of because certain things in small towns, I think a lot of people can say maybe stereotypes are a little more truer than progressive big urban cities, but with cannabis, I'm not so sure if that would be the case. Is it?
That's a great question. That's one study we haven't seen yet. It seems that the consensus that's being delivered to the masses as far as what the overall ideology is towards cannabis, it is just this blanketed, the U.S. is in favor of, Canada is in favor of, and they give this percentage. But I would be curious, to your point, we even have something called the Bible Belt down here, which technically I'd say spans from Utah all the way to the Deep South. And, some of the places along that stretch, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, they've traditionally been known for growing some phenomenal cannabis, albeit underground, right? So it does make me wonder where it is and isn't accepted. But there's still some counties, believe it or not, down here that are dry, as we say, where alcohol can't be sold at all, or alcohol isn't sold on Sundays. I just read an article in one of my daily emails that I want to say is a town in, I believe, North Dakota, that they didn't allow any commerce on Sundays. There were no retail stores open on Sundays because they wanted to encourage people to have a family day and to go to church and the rest of it. But even that, that kind of ideology towards everything is changing. So I would be curious, though, to see what the difference is between small town versus big town, USA or Canada.
Lance Lambert at 805 Lance on Twitter from Boveda Inc. BovedaInc.com. Hashtag Boveda Cannabis. They don't touch the plant. And Lance knows everything there is to know about the plant, though, and all the laws that circulate the plant, especially in the United States. And Oregon law apparently is limiting the sales of marijuana byproducts. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. Oregon's had a bad go, I'd say, to a certain extent, right? So Oregon started out with limitless licenses, and so what that means is they had no cap. So if you had the money to throw down on purchasing a license to start growing, to be a cultivator, or as we reference in Canada, a licensed producer, that's great, but so many came on the market, it got to a point of saturation. So the price has been substantially lower. those same growers, they try to get creative, and there's other derivatives that come out of the plant that don't have psychoactive effects. So there's all kinds of different cannabinoids, and something we've briefly talked about before called terpenes, which terpenes can be found in other things. If you love the flavor of vanilla extract, or if you love the flavor of maple syrup or citrus oranges, all those, they have a high level of respective terpenes that gives it that flavor and gives it that taste. Well, cannabis, this plant has terpenes as well. And that's the thing that unfortunately just came up, is the fact that due to Oregon state law, no derivative from marijuana can be sold outside of state lines. So you have companies there that have these phenomenal terpenes. And the reason for people to use them is when someone's making, say, a terpene oil, which concentrates are coming to Canada in October, right? So when you purchase an oil extract, when it goes through that process, it really strips out some of the things that contribute to what we call the entourage effect of the plant. So all of a sudden you're left with, yes, THC, maybe a little CBG or CBN or CBD, but you don't have the terpenes that really help give an overall true entourage effect and experience there. So these companies purchase terpenes from suppliers like these folks in Oregon to bring that effect back to the end user's experience. And again, it's unfortunate because this is something that the rest of the country could very much use. And yeah, they're limited on being able to sell outside of state lines, unfortunately.
I saw also in the UK from the notes that, you forward to Bilal every week, and then we do this to prep for the interview, Lance, that the UK Prime Minister names cannabis legalization advocate as justice advisor. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. You know, Boris Johnson, good old Boris, former mayor of London, quite a character. And he's pretty radical, I'd say, by standards at least of the UK being a bit more conservative.
He loves Donald Trump, loves him.
Oh my God. Is that why he muddles his hair after him?
Yeah, exactly. No, well, he doesn't like him, which is funny, but they do have the hair. Yeah,
they do have the hair. So, and he's very similar in being as PC as possible, kind of looked at as being a little aggressive, similar to Trump. But, he has segued into the prime minister position. And, he's bringing on an individual that we're a big fan of in the industry because this guy is, definitely an advocate of cannabis legalization. His name is Blair Gibbs, and he's going to be a special advisor on the crime and justice policy program. And this is someone who has worked with Boris for some time. He actually worked with Boris and did some, essentially some consulting with him and supporting him during his time as mayor. So it's nice to see someone get in there. And really the objective is to get the British government to concede that the cannabis, safely produced and set by high quality standards and prescribed in a regulatory manner is definitely a good alternative to extreme Western medicine. So definitely applaud the powers that be for moving things in the right direction. And of course, specifically England could use this help. Looking at Brexit and everything going on, they're going to have some financial downfalls. There's been certain companies that have pulled out of there, like Nissan, even Dyson moved their corporate operations from England to Singapore. So they're having some challenges financially. And who knows? I mean, cannabis could really step in and help them subsidize some of that with some taxes,
Yeah, it's interesting that the whole world doesn't look at it as not only just a great opportunity for taxes to help communities, to help cities, to help countries, but also really job creation. And that's one of the discussions, Lance, you and I have had in the past.
Sure.
Where the biggest growing sector in the United States for jobs are, and there's a huge credit to what's going on with employment rates, is the cannabis industry. And I don't know why. I honestly don't know why both the tax situation and the job growth isn't talked about and promoted. Honestly, to be honest, and I know the users get mad when you talk about taxes, but personally, I think it's like any other industry. Why wouldn't you pay taxes on it? You do on your booze, you do on your food. But the job stuff especially, this is massive and would be massive for a lot of other countries too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 100%. That's one thing that we are seeing. Forbes just did an article a few months back, Q1 of this year, talking about that, how marijuana industry is projected to create more jobs than manufacturing by 2020. Not by 2025, not by 2030. We're talking about by next year that there's going to be more opportunities in this industry than others. But we've already created, as of 2019, 211,000 full-time jobs in America. That was reported on a special report from Bruce Barcott back in March via Leafly. And I think that's an important point for people to understand. And even, I'm sure you've had the conversations. I've had plenty of them where people go, I'm passionate about it, but I don't really know enough to get in the industry. And I ask them, what do you do now? Oh, well, I'm actually I'm a lawyer, or I'm in sales, or I'm in HR. And I explain to people, we need all those positions filled. We have all those positions available in this industry. Everything that every other category needs, we need as well. So there's definitely plenty of opportunities and plenty of places to find those opportunities online right now.
Massive numbers there when you hear that, 211,000. Yeah, it's interesting. One of the other companies we work with, you probably hear me talk about them, from the 360 Secure Studios. Yep. Did we talk about this last week? I forget, Lance. Or about 360?
Yep. I've been following you, so that's what I found. We didn't actually talk about it, but yes.
Oh yeah, no, but it's a really interesting thing. Like in terms of from anything you do, like even if you're a security guard, like there's companies now that protect cannabis and they're looking for security guards nonstop. So like this, actually, it's interesting. I know a friend right here in the town I'm in who's looking to I got to hook them up, and I think I forgot to do that. It just reminded me to. Okay, let's move on to what we're doing here in Canada, which is really exciting, and this is something I know that you're obviously very pleased with. How Canadians can now apply for free, no-wait pardons for cannabis possession charges.
This is so cool. I love when I see certain industries like ours doing things right, and the government supporting those initiatives to move things in the right direction. And this is something a lot of friends that definitely consider themselves activists, I've always considered myself an advocate, very much stand up for, freeing those that have been wronged. And Canada has taken the lead on this. While we're doing it city by city, maybe county by county, now we're getting into state by state. It is literally Canada that has Bill C-93 specifically. And so this is, Montreal Justice Minister and Attorney General David Lametti said that Measure Bill C-93 will take effect immediately. So no waiting, no grace period. Literally, it's just you can go to it. And essentially what this bill talks about is anyone that has been convicted of a crime of simple possession, which for you all, that's a possession of under 30 grams, so under an ounce of cannabis, they can have their records suspended free of charge, so no fees like what we're seeing in the States. Before it was the nominal fee, I think, of $631. But you can definitely get into queue now and get that expunged from your record. And that's huge for people that have had, obviously, some issues in outcomes from being prosecuted in the past. So again, major props to your country for taking the lead globally in addressing this issue of people being wronged in the failed war on drugs.
Yeah, and really is great. From what I understand, though, there's still things and little restrictions on travel and stuff. They don't seem like complete pardons because other countries still might view it a little bit differently. So have you heard some of that, Lance?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is, something isn't a full expunge is what it sounds like. So to your point, it can still be looked up. You can still get some static from CBP, which is obviously our Border Patrol that monitors the Canadian and U.S. borders. So you can get some static there. That kind of segues into another story recently that's saying, even if you are in an area where it is legal to consume cannabis, if you're a foreigner, if you're a visitor or an immigrant, you still very much want to be cautious about consuming and making sure that you're following the laws to the T, because there's been some issues with people possessing more than they're supposed to or consuming in places where they're not allowed. And obviously repercussions include and are not limited to obviously being sent out of the country.
I'll tell you, it's really interesting. I told you I think I'm in cottage country right now. And the stigma still of how I feel about marijuana, you hear these pardons and you realize these stigmas are ending, which is nice, especially on the government side of things. But one of the things, and rightfully so, that they're very strict on here in Canada is boating and drinking. But they're also very strict on even how you carry booze in your boat from dock to dock, or, like you can't have an open bottle. You're not even really supposed to transport beer. You need certain rules, like you need to have a bathroom within the boat. You need to have like a deck almost. There's just different rules. I know that my boat, for example, doesn't permit it. And the other things, obviously, and one of our other sponsors always reminds you of us of this at namaste-technologies.com, is to never get high and drive. And you don't get high and drive, Lance, within a car. You would never get high and drive within a boat. But I was on a boat, and I had a buddy of mine who had a vape pen with cannabis in it. And at first I'm like, oh no, dude, like you can't have that. Like you can't have that on the boat. He goes, no. I'm pretty sure that every law in this country now would allow me to have this on the boat. A, you're not smoking it. B, we can have a cigarette on this boat, and it's sort of very similar regulations in terms of how you can smoke a cigarette is now how you can smoke cannabis within Canada. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I haven't looked into it since, but it's like, it's really interesting. I was almost freaking out going, what if I ever got pulled over? Like, and he's like, no, you can buy this and have it on a boat.
Yeah, I would definitely play it safe. Look at your local rules and regulations. We always say that when talking about consumption of cannabis and carrying cannabis in the States, but that applies in any country where it's legal, no matter if it's Canada, Uruguay, or Germany. You definitely want to be cognizant of local rules and regulations, because a lot of the times the people that are behind those rules and regulations when it comes to enforcement, they don't have an understanding of it. We had people that were arrested in the state of Texas for having CBD vape pens, only CBD. It had less than 0.3% THC, which is what is allowed by law. And still, because they don't have the instruments to delineate how much THC is in there, they still got fined. Now, it got thrown out. The state of Texas realized they didn't have a lab that could test it. So I think it was over 257 people had their cases thrown out because Texas couldn't prove that it did or did not have the legal limit of THC to be considered CBD. But it is very much a gray area in many respects to where you have to learn the law. It's just also new and fresh,
Well, Lance, you always give us so much information, as I say, week after week after week, and nice to answer so candidly that even if you don't have all the answers, that people should maybe do look into some of this stuff for themselves, just to make sure that they won't get in trouble and need to be pardoned one day as well. Well, listen, man, I can't believe how quick this chat went. Really, really smooth as always. Lance Lambert at 805 Lance. Please give him a follow. BovedaInc.com. It's BOVEDAINC. Lance, I'm going to give you a call off here. I got some stuff I want to talk to you about. Man, you're so great. Appreciate you joining us today. And please, everyone, go and follow #Boveda Cannabis and look at the great news and podcasts and obviously their product, which doesn't touch the plant but keeps everything fresh.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.